Hi, I'm Debbie.
And I'm Tim.
Welcome to Vintage Food Farm. Today we are going to show you what a big, wet mess the whole property is. So heaps of you have been messaging saying that you want us to do more property videos. And the reason we haven't is because it has been raining for 3 months, heavy tropical rain non-stop. And because of that, the whole property is an absolute boggy, disgusting, overgrown, needing mowing, needing whippersnipping mess. We've actually got family coming to stay and we need to sort of make it a little bit better than what it is, especially when they have little kids. So we're going to try and clean up the veggie garden as much as we can, but it's not going to be much at all. And I'm going to show you how muddy and messy it is. Like, it is horrible. If I want to pick herbs, I have to put on my $8 Cambodian gumboots, because otherwise I just end up with mud all between my toes, all over my feet, and it's not mud that you can just rinse off, it sticks. Tim and I are going to go for a walk through the garden now, and we'll show you what is out of control, which is everything basically. So because there is so much water in the ground, it has all swollen up and the gate won't even open and close. So I'll show you how wet the ground is. Because the grass has grown so much, obviously we want to mow it. But we can't mow it because it's like a swimming pool and the mower won't be able to cope with it. We've got a little hand push mower that we use in here. And even outside of the veggie garden in the main area, we can't even use the ride-on because it's so wet. Like, look how high this is. Having said all of that, because we've got raised garden beds, once it does dry out, and we are going to do some stuff today, but once it does dry out and we can mow it, it is going to be back to perfect again. If we didn't have the raised garden beds, it would be a total nightmare because everything would have been grown over by the weeds. So this is the grass. This should be like lawn around the garden beds, and I'll show you all the sweet potatoes that are growing up from the ground. So they've started in the garden bed and then the runners have come off and gone down into the grass. So we are now growing sweet potatoes everywhere, right across the whole veggie patch. And I'll show you down the back. It is a total mess. It's not going to take much to fix it up once it dries, but I'm going to show you what can happen when there's this much rain for this long. Okay, so on the way, this is so bad. This is worse than what it was 2 days ago. So we love native raspberries and we keep them in a garden bed so that they're nice and controlled and they don't escape. I can't even see the garden bed right now. Look at this. So in there somewhere is the garden bed, and they have all just come out everywhere. So normally you can walk through there. They've come out everywhere, all around, and anywhere they're touching the ground, they're going to grow, but we will be able to mow them. Look at this. The native raspberries have come over into the sweet potato bed. So we've been waiting for days to do this video because we kept thinking if we can just get one day where it's not raining so much. I'm trying to squeeze through these raspberries. They're just grabbing onto me. If we could just get one day with less rain, it would be easier to film and I wouldn't have to carry an umbrella. But I'll show you and it's never happened. So we've just had to film in the rain. But have a look at this. So that's all native raspberries and they're about to fruit. You can see that there's one here. They're so good. So I've actually changed our plan. So we were going to cut this back in the rain, but I think the fact that it's about to fruit, we should just leave it and let it fruit, because we are going to get so many raspberries off of this. And then once it's fruited and we've picked all the raspberries, then we'll cut it back and mow around it. Unbelievable. Look at it. So this is all sweet potato and yams and taro. I'll show you the taro as well. That is in its perfect climate and nothing is stopping it. It's just going absolutely bonkers. There's a few bits of grass in between. There's a few weeds, but not much. And this is what's really interesting is if you just leave stuff, if you've got the right plants, they will beat the weeds. And that is our philosophy, because we don't ever want to be weeding. So it's just, the rain has just gotten heavier again. Tim is absolutely soaked already. Look at these poor chickens. They do have a shelter, and they have milk crates that they can get up off the ground, and they also have their coop, but they are choosing to stand out there in the rain, in the water, and there is nothing I can do about it. I just have to trust that they know what they're doing. Look how many sweet potatoes there are. So in here is all of the native raspberries, then a pandan plant that's grown so big it's fallen over. We are going to have so many sweet potatoes. Out the back here we've got lots of taro, lots of sweet potatoes. We've got some young orange trees, mandarin trees, and a bush lemon. But yeah, the sweet potato, look, it's escaped from the back here and it's actually going back into the veggie garden. And you can see how dark the whole place is. It's like you're in nighttime most of the day. It is so wet and constant, it is crazy. So today we're going to try and clean it up a little bit. I'm not sure how long we're going to last though, because this rain is just getting heavier and heavier. If you saw our video last week, we went to the Yungaburra markets, and even there it was soaked out, like it was so wet. Locals are even saying how much water we've had. So since Cyclone Jasper, which was in December, it has not stopped. It is unbelievable. All of the fruit trees are growing like crazy, so there's a real upside to it. But it is, yeah, it's starting to get a little bit drawn out. But I mean, the fact that everything's growing so well, once it dries out, once we can clean it up, it is going to be fantastic. So what we're going to do today is a bit of chop and drop. So what we do with the garden beds is once they get overgrown, we just go through. Normally we would mow, but today we're going to whippersnipper. And everything that we cut off, we just chuck back into the garden beds so that it either grows, or if it dies, it just becomes great nutritious soil and fills the garden beds. So it's a very simple process. We don't take anything out. We just cut it and drop it, cut it and drop it, and work our way around.
So wet, the lemongrass has fallen over.
And the tongue spinach looks like it's fallen over a bit, but it'll all come back. There's no problem at all. So let's get into the garden and see what else is happening. So for the last few months, we kept saying we need to do a video. We need to do a video, like a homestead video. And even this weekend, I was like, but we can't. It's such a mess. And Tim's like, well, people can see what happens when it's wet like this. So this is normally a clear walkway, and I'll tell you exactly what we've got going on here. So normally we would be able to just walk through on the lawn there, and we'd be able to pick our herbs and our Cape gooseberries and our chilies and our kangkong. But what it is, it's Vietnamese coriander, which is totally overgrown. Then on this side, we've got kangkong, which ironically is called water spinach in Asia. And when it gets a lot of water, it just goes crazy, which is fantastic. We're eating so many beautiful veggies from here. It's just not so fun to come out in snake territory and pick them. We've also got a massive amount of wing beans. We've got chilies. We've got the Cape gooseberries. So all of that has just grown onto the ground. So we need to cut all of that back with the whippersnipper and just dump it back into the garden. So the wing beans unusually haven't made any fruit yet, haven't made any beans yet. And I think it's the rain. So it's growing like crazy, but I think it's waiting for the rain to stop before it starts to fruit. So we'll see what happens with that. But we are going to have 100 kilos of wing beans, like it's insane. So I'm going to try and walk through this mess through to Tim, and we're going to see what we're going to do. This is so exciting. So we've got a taro plant here, which we love taro, it's so good, but I've never seen it flower, and it is actually flowering. Well, it's about to flower. I'll show you the bud. This is insane. Can you imagine? That's all wing beans. How many winged beans we are going to have? You should see Tim, he is totally soaked. This is a stupid video idea. This was your idea. So look, we're getting out of here anyway. All the water spinach. We could have stir fries every single night forever. Oh. And this is the pea eggplant. I am so scared I'm going to see a snake. And there's Cape gooseberries. So this is the other thing, because we haven't been controlling it, everything's coming up everywhere. And that includes grass, like there is some grass coming up in some places. But I know now from experience not to worry about that, because things like the betel leaf or the fish mint or one of a million plants will actually overtake the grass. The grass is not as strong here as what these tropical vegetables are, which is so cool. So if we get any grassy bits, we'll just dump some dirt or some wood chip or anything on top of them, and then we will chuck in some other plants, and that's your grass sorted. We don't pull anything out. Too much hard work. Ugh.
I brought these out to cut something down. No point.
So I'll show you here. So this is where there was grass and weeds growing, and now we've got in there Okinawa spinach, fish mint, there's some cucamelons, and it's all overtaking the grass. So all we need to do now, this is so bad, I'll show you. So this is where there's no weeds because the tropical vegetables are overtaking it. We also eat a heap of lemongrass. We make bo la lot, which is the little Vietnamese beef rolls in la lot leaves, which are betel leaves. And we use a lot of lemongrass and a lot of betel leaves for that. But the lemongrass will get rid of any weeds that you've got, and then you just keep it trimmed down so it's easy to get your lemongrass for your dinner, and it works really well. So here's some of the betel leaf. These are just baby ones, so they're smaller. All of that grass that has come up in the bed will be taken over by the betel leaf, so we don't have to do anything. All we need to worry about is the walkways and getting those under control and preventing more seeds from getting into the garden beds, and then just leave it all to do its thing, and everything that we love to eat will go insane and just take over everything. So this is fish mint and longevity spinach in this bed, some lemon basil, and we've also got holy basil, we've got some Thai basil, heaps and heaps of different, we've got sawtooth coriander, we've got the Vietnamese coriander. So we feed our chickens sunflower seeds sometimes, if we've got sunflowers or if we buy some. And I've thrown some in here on the grass. They haven't eaten it, and it's so wet that the sunflower seeds have germinated and are coming up in the grass. Bit wet?
I don't know. I'll just check.
That's disgusting. Some things that are struggling, but not disappearing, are the cucamelons. So we've still got enough cucamelons to eat as many as we want, but they are not as good as what they would normally be if there was a bit more dry weather. That is a cucamelon, and Tim's going to do a taste test. Cucamelons are like the best cucumber you'll ever have in the tropics. They are halfway, the flavour is halfway between a cucumber and, well, it's a cucumber with a citrusy flavour to it. And they grow so quickly, and once you've got them established, they will come up every single year. We don't have a lot of luck growing the larger cucumbers. We grow some sometimes, but for easy cucumbers that we never have to do anything to, we never have to plant, that just keep self-seeding and coming up each year, the cucamelons are the absolute best. And the fact that they've survived all of this rain and they are still there, not beautifully, but they are still there, is really cool. So I'm going to show you right now the absolute worst part, and I'm not even going to walk through it. So this is the first half of the second arch, and it is just weeds. So we will cut that back and chuck some stuff on top. What's that?
More raspberries.
So Tim's just found another native raspberry there, which is not what we want. We do not want native raspberries to go everywhere, so we'll pull that out. I mean, I suppose that you could call them invasive, but they're not really, because they're so easy to control just by mowing. But I think we've let it go a little bit too far this time. Best thing we ever bought in Cambodia was the $8 gumboots. And they're really light and soft, so they're not too hard to wear, if you know what I mean. So papaya is going really well. All of our papaya suffered greatly after Cyclone Jasper, as did Skyberry farms and everywhere, because papayas can't have wet feet for too long. Because we've got ours in the raised garden beds, they are doing better than most. Some of the ones in the ground have died, but some are okay. But even with this amount of rain, they're actually doing really well. They've done better, but they are still producing fruit and they look okay. So you can see just that one papaya plant has about 20 papayas on it. So even in this rain, we're still getting a lot of food from that tree. And we've got probably, I don't know, heaps and heaps and heaps of papaya plants. Some doing better than others, but they're still okay. And we've also got hundreds of baby papaya plants to plant once it dries out a little bit. Oh, rosemary doesn't look very good, but it's still there. So we grow marigolds because they keep the pests out of the garden, and I'm very, very sure of that now. And the other reason is we pick the petals with the seeds in them when they get a little bit older, and we feed them to the chickens, and they absolutely love them, and they're great for keeping the chickens healthy, and they deter parasites or mites or anything like that that might get on the chickens. But even the rain has pushed them over. Garlic chives are very happy in the water. Tim's going to go and cut down some of this abaca or Tongan spinach that has fallen over. You can see how easy that is to break off. So it grows really, really quickly. It gets really big. It's really yummy. And any of the bits that are too scraggly, you can just break off. You don't even need to cut them. And the beauty of this plant is if we stick those broken bits in the ground, they will grow really easily. Anything that we pull out of the gardens, we chop and drop. We chop it off and we put it back into the garden bed. And we've already chopped and dropped a lot of the spinach in here, so it looks a mess, but we're going to keep filling it up, and then we'll put some wood chip and everything on top, and then we don't have to pay to fill our garden bed. So Tim is chopping and dropping the abaca or the Tongan spinach, which is very easy, she says, as she's not doing it. And this will break down so quickly. In a matter of weeks, this will be broken down, especially in this weather. We don't take anything to the tip. There's no green waste. It's all nutrients and matter that we want to keep on the property. And we use every single bit of it. So once Tim puts all the green in the bottom, all the chop and drop, we will then get all the palm fronds and branches that have dropped off over the last 3 months, which is a big, big pile. And we will chip them with the wood chipper, and we will put that on top, and then some chicken manure, and that will break down into the most beautiful soil that we use to top up the mill mud in the beds. So in the way that we chop and drop the Tongan spinach, if we get a bed with a papaya tree in it that needs filling, we will just chop down that papaya tree and fill the bed with that and other waste as well. And that's a lot of mass to put in there. That will then break down and help to fill the bed. And then we will plant another papaya, which will be fruiting in 6 months. And we've got so many, it doesn't matter. And that way it's just a cycle that we use to keep the beds full and nice and fertile. The sawtooth coriander took a beating after Cyclone Jasper, but it is now coming up everywhere all over the place. Oh, this plant here does so well in the rain, and that is Luffa. So Luffa you can grow until it's big and dry it out, and you can use it as a face scrubber, a dish scrubber. I have one in the shower to clean the shower when I'm in there. And you can also eat them like zucchini when they're young. It is insane how big they get. It's crazy. And it's still growing and still flowering. So there's a lady in Cairns who messaged me desperate for seeds. And I told her, yes, I'll dry some seeds out for her. So I think these Luffa are almost ready to dry out now so that I can send her some seeds. I don't sell seeds, I don't send them to people. I just happen to want to send them to this lady, FYI. Having said that, if you're desperate and you can't find any of these sort of plants that are not that easy to find, give me a message and just see if I feel like it. We've got a combination of Luffa and passion fruit, which has all just come back naturally itself on the line. But I'll show you this Luffa here. This is dried and ready to get the seeds out of. And you can see that one there starting to dry. Now the problem is with this weather is they grow really, really big. They then start to dry out, but if they get water inside them, they just turn into a rotten septic mess. So really, as soon as it starts to get a little bit of brown on it, you should pick it and just put it under cover somewhere and just leave it for a week or so to dry out. Maybe 2 weeks in this wet weather. Oh, I'll just show you this passion fruit as well. Here's a nice new flower. We could get secateurs and we could go through and we could gently cut off everything, but we don't have the time or the energy for that sort of gardening. So Tim is just going to get the whippersnipper, cut it all back and chuck it back into the garden bed. So you can see that it doesn't matter how bad this gets, it's not that big a deal because we can easily just use the whippersnipper, cut along each side, pick up everything dump it back in the garden beds, and with this rain that will be rotted down and fantastic in a couple of weeks. Now he's just going to cut down the grass just a little bit to make it nicer. And that's it. We can now walk through the veggie garden in that part anyway. Next time we show you this Vietnamese coriander, so the rain will wash off the side of the garden beds of all the grass. I'm not worried about that. You will see it just comes back beautifully. And we can now walk up and down, even though it is still a mud fest. So we will use the same whippersnipper technique to, if we've got a garden bed with too much grass in it, we'll whippersnipper the grass down to the dirt, and then we will just cover it with some chop and drop. Doesn't matter what it is, just something that we've cut out of the veggie garden, or some chipped palm fronds or branches. When you're watching Tim whippersnipper, it's like there's smoke coming out, but it's a battery operated whippersnipper. It's actually just thousands of water molecules in the air, like a steam almost.
Have I got anything on my face?
Yes, I wouldn't even worry about it. The other thing that is great to chop and drop is lemongrass. So if you cut your lemongrass back, it's very, very easy. It means you can get to the bottom of the plant nice and easily as well for eating. But then you can use the lemongrass as mulch and just put that in your garden. That did not take long at all. It's not perfect, it's a bit messy, but we will do it with the mower once we get a bit drier, but it's certainly an option with this sort of amount of rain. Tim is now going to cut a path for the chickens because we let the bantams into the veggie garden. They eat all the grasshoppers, keep the pests under control. Really, really helpful in the garden. Not the big chickens because they will just eat the whole garden. But we're going to make a path through the sweet potato to the chicken door because, believe it or not, our bantams are a little bit precious and they like to see where they're walking, which I don't blame them because they're looking for pythons. So it's still muddy, but it's a path. And when I say the bantams are precious, I've seen those bantams on multiple occasions where there's been a snake on the ground and they've literally just stepped over it and gone about their business. So they're not that precious, but they do like a nice path to walk down. Oh, look, all the chickens are out drying in the sun because, well, the sun, in the not so rainy. I'll show you. Ugh. Why don't you go under cover? Look how wet you are. Hello. Hello, Ginger. So I'll show you here how wet the chicken run is. It is septically disgusting. Ugh. This is so gross and so slippery. The other thing is you want to try and stay off this grass when it's this wet because it really does dig up the mud more than you need to. So with the whole chop and drop thing, the other day I chopped and dropped the asparagus, and I'll just show you the new asparagus shoots that are coming up. Hello, Nussie. Hello, Rotty. Hello, Kaya. Hello, Dumpling. So this is a chopped and dropped asparagus. And it looks like a mess, but I'll show you the asparagus will just come up through it. So look at the size of this asparagus stalk. Oh. It is sweet. It is asparagus-y. It is so tender. Oh, just raw.
Amazing.
It is the most tender, tasty, fresh, beautiful asparagus you've ever tasted. It is so, there's not a woodiness to it. And we get asparagus all the time after only 3 years. So people say all this stuff about 25 years to grow asparagus. That's rubbish. 3 years and we've got heaps of fresh asparagus. Can you eat asparagus raw?
A bit late now.
Surely you can. I'll go Google it. If you can't, I won't put that part in the video. We started this sort of cleanup yesterday. Tim did a lot of whippersnippering. All of this paving was absolutely covered in weeds. I mean covered in weeds, all growing up in between the concrete. So he just got the whippersnipper out and cleared it all. And the only reason we did that now is because we've got family coming up to stay, and it just makes it a little bit nicer. We had visions of putting the hammocks out on the palm trees and it all been very beautiful, but nobody's going to be sitting in a hammock in this weather. And they were our $4 Cambodian hammocks, so we were pretty excited to show them off. So yesterday Tim also went round the whole block and picked up all the palm fronds that have been dropping over the last couple of, well, not whole last 3 months because we have done a pickup, but over the last few weeks. And he's doing that and putting them all into our chipping pile at the bottom of the block. And then once it dries out, if it dries out ever, we'll get the chipper out and we'll chip all of these palm fronds, so many palm fronds, and we will use them to put into the garden beds. And we will also use it to put on the muddy septic mess that is the chicken coop or the chicken run. So as we're talking, we can hear at the front of the block the roar of the creek. So we're going to go down and show you. We showed you last week when we did the Yungaburra video, but I'll show you now. But you need to be very careful because this can get really, really ice skatey, slippery. So this is the little mini creek on our block, which is very, very cute. Nothing to rave about, but it is a creek. And it's only seasonal, so it only happens when it's really wet. So that raging river is at the bottom of our block just across the road, but you can see how much water is just dropping on the tablelands, and that all comes down and then flows down the Barron River into Cairns. You're all good dogs waiting for us and sitting. Sheila, thought crime.
Sit.
Thought crime. The dogs don't care about the rain, and guess what? They're inside dogs. So every single day, 10 times a day, they walk mud into the house. It is really quite gross. So one of the things that is a real benefit to the rain is when you've got a property, you tend to just keep going and going and going. Like, you could always be doing something. We're really good. We take our time. We don't put any pressure on ourselves. We do what we feel like doing, and we know that the rest will wait. And by knowing that the rest will wait, you learn that it actually does wait. Sometimes the pressure that people put on themselves to make sure that the grass is cut so that there's no seeds and rah, 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 rah. But the beauty of the rain is that you actually get a break. So, you know, it just makes you stop and look at the place and realise how beautiful and lush. And even if the lawn's not mowed, I actually love it. I love it when it's a bit out of control, especially in the tropics, because it becomes like this sort of wilderness rainforest thing. We're going to take you down the back to show you more of that, because there's some really exciting stuff down the back. I'll show you this. This is our nursery. So I said we had lots of papaya plants. So each one of those tiny little plants, I'll separate them and pot them up and turn them into hundreds of plants. We've got heaps of herbs here. Thyme and oregano are something that don't do well in the rain, which is why I've got them in pots so that I can keep them alive and then plant them again later. And I've put empty pots next to the main pot, if you have a look. So they're still attached to the mother plant, but they're growing roots into those little pots. So I will end up with another few lots of oregano that I can plant out. So Tim did manage to mow down the back here, so it is a lot better than what it was. But we'll take you down there and I'll show you, we've got a fence line there, but behind that is our property as well. That was just the easiest place to put the fence without doing a lot of clearing, because we still wanted to leave the tropical rainforest around us. But I'm going to show you some of the beautiful, I'm going to call them indoor plants because that's how I've always known them, but they're actually just tropical plants that are coming up in the actual bush. It's like if you had a designer plant shop, you would die if you saw some of these plants. So let's go and have a look. So when the family comes up this afternoon, we would always do a big fire pit, bonfire, burn pit, but it's just going to be too wet. We've got some wood and some palm fronds here, but it ain't happening. So look at this. This is the bush, and look at these plants that are coming up. It is just incredible. So I think they're like an ornamental ginger. And that's galangal, and there's also some jackfruit and a mango tree. So stunning, absolutely beautiful. And that's just all just growing in the bush. I really want to go and pick some of those ginger flowers. I think they're ornamental ginger. If they're not, let me know. And then we've got another creek that goes down the back. And we have left a gate when we fenced it. We've got a gate up the other end so that we can get in there, which is really good because I need to go in there and pick some flowers. We just found another bunch of bananas. Oh, I'm being eaten alive. So pretty, and I really just want to leave this whole area, and then maybe one day we whippersnipper a path through it. So that's all beautiful native pandanus. Oh, I'm literally sinking and falling in this. This is like quicksand. And none of that has been planted. That's just all come up. Maybe somebody chucked a pot plant down there or two one time, I don't know. But it wasn't there, and now it's all there, and it is so beautiful. So there's horses next door in that paddock, and Sheila doesn't bark at them or do anything, but she still loves to sit here at a distance and watch them. Look at all this siamanus or sweet leaf. Really beautiful green vegetable, so yummy. Look at this flower, seriously. So I've started growing some indoor plants in pots on the deck, which I wasn't going to do, but I can't help it. And I just come and get them from the bush. Actually, the bush over there, not here. But look at this. So this garden is an absolute mess, but it's still recoverable when it dries out. And often what we'll do is we'll just get the brush cutter attachment on the whippersnipper and just cut the whole thing back, except for the frangipanis, obviously, and the guava tree, and it all just comes straight back up again beautifully. They are beautiful, yummy curry leaves.
Smells so good.
Yeah.
Can you eat them? Raw?
Has it got a bug on it?
No.
Yeah.
You say that
No,
with,
you can. I mean,
such confidence.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not like it's nicer cooked. It's a bit tough.
It is.
Tons and tons and tons and tons of betel leaf growing here. So the thing about betel leaf is, even in Sydney, I'm not sure about Melbourne, but in Sydney and Brisbane and Cairns, they actually use it as a council plant in the median strips and on the sides of the walkways and highways, because it actually outgrows the weeds and it's green. I wouldn't eat it from there because who knows what's on it, but still it just shows you what a vigorous, fantastic plant, and once you learn how to cook with it, there's no turning back. It is addictively beautiful. When I make bola lot for people that haven't had it before, they don't understand what they're seeing, and then they eat it and they say, what is this leaf? Because it is so good. So as well as the good plants, there's the bad plants, and this is a noxious weed that we actually need to pull out, but I'll show you. It's the prettiest noxious weed you'll ever find. So that's just to show you how wet this block is. It is absolutely saturated. Hopefully it stops raining soon. If it doesn't, we don't really care. It's still beautiful, it's still tropical and lush and green, and everything is growing so well that when we do get a break and we can mow, it's going to look awesome. That is it. If you feel like it, and only if you feel like it, like and subscribe. But most importantly, stay calm in the farm.